You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, as a prompt for our conversation, which is reviewing the UNWTO Global Conference, that's the World Tourism Organization Global Conference, which took place in Lagos last week, we're taking this background report from our correspondent, Anthony Forson.
At the refurbished National Theatre, Igomu, Lagos, the conference took into consideration the vital role of youth in contributing to remodeling tourism for the future. In this session, youth with startups specifically designed for the tourism sector showcase their innovation.
The goal of the application is to make tourism accessible to everyone.
President Muhammadu Buhari, who was represented by Vice President Yemi Osinbajo, was emphatic on how the sector's narratives can be changed for the better.
An African premiere was held at all for any movie is an important statement all right. And I think that we should always remember to commend all of these great young men and women who are doing such great things, unifying Africa and unifying the world in the process.
Emphasizing that the vast components of tourism are local and homegrown, they are more likely to be sustainable, pointing at Nigeria's creative industries where Nigerian music is rendered in Nigerian languages are played all over the world, just as Nigerian movies are breaking box office records. It is a pointer that Africans at home and in the diaspora are excelling. He, however, commended UNWTO for the confidence in Nigeria and her ability to host the conference. On key goals of the conference, the minister said it will bring to the fore sustainable solutions and innovative policies for the development and enhancing the potentials of the sector. Another key area the conference trade on is how to promote intra-Africa travels and tourism, leveraging on vast and unique resources as well as its population. After a brainstorming session, the delegates settled for a special command performance spiced with music.
And to review the 2022 UNWTO Global Conference, let me introduce in our studio the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed. You're welcome to Good Morning. It's been a while. I haven't seen you.
Thanks to
Kingsley has been blocking
thanks to Kingsley.
Seriously.
Thank you very much. All right, Honorable Minister, the World Tourism Organization Global Conference has, as the saying goes, come and gone. On the eve of the conference, we had an interaction with you from our Lagos Network studios. We touched on a number of subjects, and you also had expectations with regard to one, attendance, two, the various engagements, and then the outcomes. In summary, what's your assessment of the conference?
Thank you very much, Kingsley. I think with all sense of humility, the first ever United Nations World Tourism Organization Global Conference on tourism, culture, and the creative industry was quite successful. It held between the 14th and 16th of November, and the venue was refurbished, National Theatre. I think there are two unique events in this regard. The first, that this is the first time the UNWTO will hold a conference and under one roof would consider the three very linked issues of culture, tourism, and creative industry. Secondly, it is the first time that any event will hold at the refurbished National Theatre in Lagos. It was well attended. We had at least 8 African ministers, and we had about 60 delegations from 60 different countries. It was declared open by the Vice President on behalf of Mr. President, and I think by all standards, it was very successful hosting. It was not just a Georgia conference. In other words, we had high-level panels, we had workshops, we had symposium, but at the same time, we also had exhibitions. We also had a whole day devoted to interaction with Nollywood. We had a gala night and a command performance and an awards night. So in short, it was all that you want to expect in a global conference that try to examine the link between tourism, culture, and the creative industry.
Yes, when you signed the agreement in Spain, you assured Nigerians that you put together a trailblazing event, of which most Nigerians saw at the event there, and the renovation of the iconic edifice, that's the National Theatre. I remember going there for the first time, one time in Lagos, and that was the first time I was able to see Sam Loco on stage playing. Growing up as a child, I was on stage myself, so it was a very beautiful. But along the way, the place just deteriorated due to neglect and decay. So how were you able to just think about it? We need to renovate this place, and how much support did you get in doing that?
I think it was first of all thank Mr. President, who had the foresight and to appreciate the fact that the renovation of National Theatre was far beyond the capacity of the federal government, and who willingly approved the proposal of the central bank governor and the bankers committee to take over the renovation and do a kind of PPP arrangement with the government, whereby we will surrender the venue, they will invest resources there, and then they will manage it for a period of time. And I think the experiment paid off. Anybody who had the privilege to see the refurbished National Theatre, actually it's just phase one of the refurbished National Theatre. What happened was that we put pressure on the consultants and the contractors to make ready, the banquet hall, the lobby, the VIP lounges, and the other centers to accommodate the UNWTO Global Conference, and they worked against time and they succeeded. And what we have today, we've sent pictures of it around the world, and it has actually received very rave reviews, because you will not even believe that this event center, this iconic structure can be revived, renovated to that world-class standard. And the unique thing about it is that what was really refurbished and what was restored were actually the same materials that were used 45 years ago, be it the flooring, be it the artwork. And we must really congratulate both the consultants and the contractors for a very, very well done job.
Okay, thank you very much. I mean, sometimes this is tangential. Sometimes when we are pretty angry with ourselves as a people, we try to ask the question, what have we done with our oil money? The National Theatre is an example of what we did with our oil money. Festac Town is an example of what we did with our oil money. The expressways that we have had, it's also part of what we did with our oil money. Those were good times. If we were to try to invest in those or in this kind of infrastructure now, of course, it probably would be a pretty difficult thing. But back again to the conference, what were the conclusions?
Well, you see, the takeaway for me of this global conference on tourism, culture, and the creative industry, takeaways were many. The first is that we're able to showcase a world-class venue that can host regional and global events at any level, comparable to any level in the world. The second for me is that we're able also to showcase our culture, our tourism potentials, and also our creative industry to such an extent that the Secretary General of the United Nations World Organization regretted not bringing his family to Nigeria. Thirdly, for me, is that the fact that Nigeria is able to host 2 global conferences back to back within a period of less than 1 month. Recall that we also hosted the UNESCO Media and Literacy Week between the 24th of October and the 31st of October here in Abuja, and then we now hosted the whole world again at the National Theatre between the 14th and 16th. Shows that despite the antics of naysayers, Nigeria is safe and is ready to host world-class events. But on a more particular note, the gala night, the special performance, a common performance by Brian Austin Peters, and especially the day with Nollywood, has really worked well for Nigeria because it prompted the Secretary General of the United Nations World Organization that Nigeria will be a leading contender when they are considering where to site a global university of tourism, which UNWTO is considering. Secondly, he was so impressed with the interaction with the Nollywood producers and directors that he promised that UNWTO is going to help further develop the Nollywood. So for us, I think we are glad that it was held. We are glad it was also held in the National Theatre in Igomo, and we are also glad that we were able to showcase our culture, our gastronomy, our fashion to the whole world. But more importantly, that we are proving to the naysayers that Nigeria is a safe country, Nigeria is ready to host the world, and that Nigeria is a hub for business.
Yes, the creative industry is quite huge in Nigeria, and this opportunity, I believe, is awesome for them to key into it with our rich, diverse cultural heritage. So how did they, participate in the event, and how did they key into the possibilities of going beyond Nigeria? Because COVID-19 brought out a lot of creativity from our youths.
Yes, it did. The very fact that you have a hub like the National Theatre for the creative industry, where people can exhibit, be their gastronomy, be their fashion. They can stay their place, they can show their films, they can have concerts. In itself, I think, is the biggest thing that has happened to the creative industry. Then don't forget that this is just phase 1 of the refurbished National Theatre. Phase 2 would comprise of the construction of 4 other verticals. 1 for fashion, 1 for films, 1 for music, and 1 for information technology. And the whole idea is to turn the whole place into what we call the Lagos Creative and Entertainment Center, which will be a one-shop stop for the entire creative industry. So with the creation of those hubs, you don't need to go outside Nigeria to to edit your films, to sub-edit your films, to post-edit your films. Then at the same time, there will also be institutes and learning facilities for the business angles of music, of film industry, and also, especially for fashion, it will train our younger elements on the basic, on the basic imperatives of of fashion, such as buttonhole sewing, good cuttings and things like that. So what we are really doing is creating a hub for the entire creative industry, be it music, be it fashion, be it beauty, hair care, whatever.
All right. I was just wondering, when I heard the comment by the Secretary General of the UNWTO about his regret in coming to Nigeria at this time, of course, one at first glance would be alarmed to say, look, what's your regret?
Yeah.
He now says, look, he's been wowed by what he has seen.
Yes.
Some persons would say that we are probably not marketing ourselves enough for the world to look in our direction and actually come, so that our positive stories overwhelm the negative stories that appear to get the limelight. What opportunity does this represent for us, therefore, in the tourism, the culture, and even the creative industry subsectors of our economy?
I think one of the best opportunities for Nigeria to actually market itself possibly was the recently held UNWTO Global Conference on the Creative Industry, because it showcased to the whole world the positive sides of Nigeria, our music, our film, our gastronomy, our culture, even our startups, our technology. You saw that one of the events actually featured a competition for hackathon, which was a competition by young people on developing developing startups to help the various areas of the creative industry, and awards were given in forms of scholarship and travels for those who won. So it shows that like the SG said, of the 10,000 entries, because the invitation was worldwide. With 10,000 entries, over 50% came from Nigeria alone. The whole world was invited to come and enter into this competition, and Nigeria alone accounted for about 50% of all the entries. And of course, at the end of the day, all the 9 winners were Nigerians. So that was, to me, that is another huge takeaway, that we had this conference and it was able to paint Nigeria in a very positive manner. But I must say that the likes of Burna Boy, the likes of Whiskey, the likes of Davido, the likes, they've also done, and they are continuing to do their bit. I think it was Burna Boy that played to a full of 70,000 people in Finland recently, and it was other Finland or Whiskey. It was a huge success. And then you see people like Whiskey also saying that O2. So our music, our film, they've really done a lot to market Nigeria. And I believe that Kiss Daniel is also played at this at the World Cup. So I think
do you know how to dance to Buga?
He knows how to do so.
And Davido was part of the theme song.
Yes.
For the World Cup. Awesome. Nigerians are trending all around the world. We are making impact. Now,
but the question is whether the honorable minister can dance to Buga.
No, Buga is easy now. Just go like that.
It's not right. Who told you? Like this now. But seriously, I think one area where Nigeria has done very well in recent time, I think, has been that in the creative industry. And we'll continue, our only two, because there are two ways to really, encourage the creative industry. And the most ambitious one we are backing upon is creating that hub, creating the infrastructure. See, when the National Theatre Phase 2 is completed, there will be no need or less need for the Wizkids of this world and Davido to go out for concerts, because the main bowl we're able to host at least 5,000 people, and that's probably 5 times more than where any purpose-built concert of Nigeria can do today. And honestly, by the time the National Theatre is completed, it will be such a game changer for all our budding artists.
I just wondering, Honorable Minister, let me ask this question. I mean, on the basis of my familiarity with that environment, it's hotel accommodation part of the refurbishment plan?
Absolutely.
Because I'm asking this, the traffic in Lagos today, is it what it was in 1977? So people could stay at Doba Hotel at the First Arc area and then commute on the expressway to get to the National Theatre, or be, at Eco Hotel or on the island and come. But today, a traffic situation. But if you then have an integrated accommodation with facilities, is it part of it?
Seriously, if you had the privilege of coming to the global to the conference, first thing that you see will be the master plan of the National Theatre, and it includes a 500 bedroom hotel.
Fantastic.
Not that alone. In collaboration with Lagos State Government, the intra-city train service also has a stop at the National Theatre, so that people can come to watch films. They can come to National Theatre not just by taxi or car, but just also by rail. Mm-hmm. So all these have been included, and also the reclamation of the swamp is all been incorporated. If you go to National Theatre today, it's like a construction site.
Part of the theme for the conference is recovery and inclusive development. Tell us about it.
Well, you see, this is the first major conference to be held, at this level by the UNWTO after COVID-19. And the whole idea is that because we realized that one of the most impacted industries by COVID-19 was creative industry, because if you cannot meet, you can't go out together, there can be no concert, so we lost a lot. So but the good news is that we've recovered almost 60%, and we've gone back to almost 60% of what the travel industry, what the creative industry used to be before COVID-19. So part of the two workshops, the two expert workshops, was actually to consider the how we can recover using culture and tourism on the one hand, and how we can recover using tourism and the creative industry on the other hand. And the emphasis now is actually being placed on inclusive growth, not just growth restricted to to the cities or to just a few activities. And to me, one of the most revealing things we know after the COVID-19 was a survey that we conducted after the COVID-19 to see how much the COVID-19 had impacted the creative industry. And we were astounded by the result. Because before then, we used to think that film and music generated a lot of money and created a lot of jobs. But on the contrary, we realized that while revenue from the film was just a paltry, 170 billion naira, and music about 300 billion naira. But the revenue generated from the hospitality industry was 1.2 trillion naira. The revenue generated from fashion alone was 2 trillion naira. Revenue generated from beauty and hair care was over 1 trillion naira. Now, and you see, these are areas of the industry that are very inclusive. Because when you look at the fashion industry, it's not just about clothes being made by the high haute couture. No, we're talking about how many pieces of clothes are sold in a day in Lagos, how many are sold in Kano in a day, how many hair pieces are sold in a day, how many people do they employ. And we found out that in Lagos, for instance, over 10,000 pieces of clothes are sold in a month. And this really is not just about those in Ikoyi or those in Victoria, but those in everywhere. And this same goes down.
Honorable Minister, I know you referenced this when we interacted with you while you were in Lagos on the eve of the conference. Is it possible to, within the time left for our conversation, to, for instance, articulate or perhaps have a pointer to the policy implication of what you have said? If during the COVID-19 lockdown, the fashion industry contributed around about 2 trillion naira, we could sit down and assume that those numbers could be a lot higher if we took advantage of the CTG value chain: cotton, textile, and garment. So, what is it we are doing at the moment? Because a number of the textile, or most of the textiles we use, come from outside the country. Fiscal implications, for instance: how do we arrest dumping? Two, how do we regenerate the textile mills in Kaduna, in Kano, in Lagos, in Aba, and elsewhere, so that many more hands can be along this value chain? Cotton, for instance, the cotton growers, the generals, and then those who are in the textile industries can also pick up. I think that these are the kind of linkages that are also very valuable for that subsector of the economy. Honorable Minister.
Yes, I agree absolutely with you, and I think here we must appreciate the efforts of the central bank to revive that particular sector. See, we are not mindful that a lot of our materials today, especially in the area of fashion, actually come from from abroad, and this is what the central bank is trying to stop by reenacting something similar to what they did so successfully in the agricultural industry, sector, through the Anchor Bora program, which is to make available facilities for the cotton and garment industry in a manner that it will bring back the old glory of the country in that industry, not just in reviving this industry, but also in addition creating more jobs. And this is how you are going to get a lot of linkage, between the cotton, the garment factory, and the fashion industry. And I think I don't have quite the figures right now, but I know the central bank is doing a lot after agriculture in that particular industry.
You talked about recovery. A lot of our artifacts have been recovered from the US, from Germany, from France. Will it be showcased at the national?
Yes, I think you recall that.
I'm saying this because the younger generation need people like us need to go and see.
You recall that when the National Theatre was in its days, we also had the National Gallery of Arts, and we also had the National, the National Museum within the same premises. As a matter of fact, we are going beyond that. We're trying to see how we can work to even have a museum of Nollywood within the same complex, because some of the issues that came up during the conference. As for our artifacts, I think the sheer number of artifacts that we have today that we have signed to recover, and we are going to recover, is such that we should also start thinking about how we can make money from those, recovered artifacts. So one of the things we signed was that we're also going to have a kind of travel arrangement with other museums all over the world, so that those artifacts can be exhibited, showcased abroad, and then some kind of revenue will also come to Nigeria from it. In addition to encouraging those who are working on new museums, the National Commission for Museums and Monuments is also working on expanding some of our museums and what new ones are being built.
When is the next UNWTO Global Conference?
This is the very first ever.
Yes.
I don't think they've fixed another one, another one. But I think we've set an act that might be very hard.
Had to be just like Festac.
Just like Festac. So, well, I wish UNWTO the best of luck. We'll be willing to offer them, some technical advice if they so wish. But I think even in the words of the SG himself, he said they did not regret, making Nigeria the first host of the global conference. We would continue to improve on our own act, and I hope that in a few years' time, when the National Theatre will be completely refurbished, it might be a permanent venue for the UNWTO Global Conference on Creative Industry and Culture and Tourism.
Yeah, we hope so, because Festac never came back. We expected, Festac to keep going around, but after that, it just went into limbo. Yes.
I think the 77 edition was the last edition.
Yes, was the last edition.
Well, it was supposed to be it was called the second.
Second,
Yes, the first was in Dakar.
Yes, in Dakar.
So far, it's
elaborate us.
Yeah, it was a difficult standard to beat. I was just wondering, Honorable Minister, because this is also an aspect. Tell us something about the food. I know you keep using the word. I've said, break it down for some of our viewers. Gastronomy.
Yes.
What was the wow effect of our food to the conference participants, and indeed to all those who came
we
around?
had an exhibition of gastronomy, and all kinds of vendors came. And I think there was this young man who was invested in the new Ofada rice. And it's Ofada rice. Today, for the first time, I saw Ofada rice that has flavors: pineapple flavor, coconut flavor, I think 2 other flavors. And when I asked during one of the luncheons, I wanted to opt for the Ofada rice. I was told they have been completely sold out. So I had to ask for an order to be made, and I think in fairness to him, within an hour or so was able to bring the my own order. So I think Nigeria is doing so well in the area of gastronomy today. They're so resourceful. They bring out new things. They package kuli in the manner that
It's amazing.
Amazing. Suya,
Sobo
amazing.
drink.
Sobo drink, and this is just sold out first.
But there's something. I think this could is a conversation we'll have some other time, because again, when we get too angry with and about ourselves, we tend to forget the many positive attributes that we have. I know that Nigerians, when they are making jokes on social media, they reference the fact that the company you keep is what elevates you. Small chops business. Small chops. You know, they used to say puff puff. Puff puff was a cheap snack. But today, if you don't have puff puff with small chops at high octane parties, then it is not complete. But see, the way Nigerians just invented the whole idea of small chops as part of the snacks for that, it's something that I find pretty amazing.
Exactly. Briefly, in 30 seconds, we're run out of time.
You just don't even look at what we can offer today. But can you imagine the number of Nigerian young men and women who are employed in the creative industry? People don't seem to look at this. Now, I told you that there are about 10,000 parties that take place in Lagos every month. Now, can you imagine?
It's not political party, it's 10,000 01 bed.
Yes. And can you imagine how many young men and women are employed? We tend to look down at what we have, and this is why I keep asking Nigerians to stop the marketing their own countries. This is one of the greatest countries on earth. Not just because I'm the minister today,
I'm proud,
but because it is true. It's one of the few countries in Africa today that you can sit at your you're in Lagos and you start hearing flights departing from Maiduguri, flights departing to Asaba, flights departing to Enugu, flights departing to Kano, flights departing. But we take this for granted. So I do make it clear. I think people should be more patriotic. Yes, there's no part of the world that doesn't have its own challenges. But rather than concentrate on our good points, I think the naysayers want to look at the weaknesses of the country.
Indeed, we are pace setters, and somebody wants to tell me that the whole world is afraid of what Nigeria can do.
Honestly, if we continue at this pace, and then the creative industry, and especially with the kind of stride the government is making in infrastructure, and how we are overcoming our security challenges, Nigeria will be the country to beat in a few years' time.
Indeed, Honorable Minister, thank you so much for coming on Good Morning Nigeria. We'll be discussing the review of the 2022 UNWTO Global Conference, and our guest is the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture, Lai Mohammed. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, Julie.
We'll take a break. When we return, our second conversation.